Bitcoin continues to make a bear flag, okay? Down move, sideways chop, and then it breaks down. Well, if you look at what Bitcoin is doing, it's doing essentially that, right? It's just a tighter range. But right now, we have this drop and then this sideways chop. And again, it doesn't guarantee it, but most times the end result is a move to the downside. There's some interesting stuff on Bitcoin. I'm actually slightly short-term bullish, and I'm going to tell you about that in just 1 second. On the Bitcoin chart, this candle is a bottoming tail. So a bottoming tail tells me there's a reversal that could be coming into play here in the near term. Now, by the way, I don't think a reversal means we're going back up here or up here. I just think we might retest this trend line right here. If it was universal, it would be a glaring short-term buy signal on Bitcoin. It's not. Where is your target? Obviously, first target I've talked about, right around 25,000 on this. If it breaks, you're going all the way down here, and you're looking at $20,000 as a target on Bitcoin. All right, next up, let's take a look at a couple other charts before I have to get going, because the markets are going to open in about 8 minutes. What I'm concerned with on the S&P is a potential head and shoulders formation. All right, now head and shoulders are bearish formations. I want to show you real quick here what I mean by that. So bearish, we're gonna do a crash course in education now. So a head and shoulders is basically a pattern. Bear with me as I get my drawing tool up here. Okay, it's a pattern like this with a head and a shoulder, right? And the idea is you can look at your neckline here, and when price breaks your neckline, which is right there, and by the way, armpit to armpit, then this is a drop like that. And the beauty of it is, and this is something that we've created here and that we've gone over, is that you can calculate your target. You take the highest point of the head, drop a plumb line down, and that distance will be a measured move down here. Okay, so essentially it's a bearish pattern, but there's some rules that go with these. People are horrible. When you see on social media, our people are like, oh, that's a head and shoulders pattern. A lot of times it's not. I'm gonna give you the keys here. One of the things is this pattern has to be at the highs of a recent chart. Otherwise, if it's not recent history, and on a daily chart, you're looking back at least 6 months, maybe a year, right? So I would say about 6 months at minimum. So is it at the high of the chart? Check, okay? Now, the next thing is are both shoulders lower than the high of the head? Yes, yes, and there's your head, higher than both, check, okay? The next thing is the neckline, and this is really, really important. The neckline has to be on a head and shoulders flat or upsloping. It can't be downsloping, invalid. That's an invalid head and shoulders if you get a downsloping trend line. Okay, so is this, the one I just drew, is it an upsloping? Yes, it is, so that's valid as well. So we would say check. All right, so that is all. Now remember, just because you have the shoulder over here, it only triggers, it only becomes relevant if you get and break this point right here. That's the only time it becomes relevant. All right, so let's quickly go back and see what we have over here. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and you'll see what I'm getting at here. So what we have here is, here's a potential head and shoulders. All right, now again, it's preliminary. Now preliminary means that you're still in the process of forming the right shoulder. So the question is this at the highest point on the chart in recent history? Yup, it is. All right, check. Is the shoulder here and the shoulder here lower than the head? Check. All right, now has it broken the neckline? And is the neckline, well, we can draw the neckline in. Is the neckline flat to upsloping? Yes, it is, right? Slightly upsloping or flat. So check, that's another check. All right, so now it's checking off the boxes for is it a valid head and shoulder pattern? All right, now the question is, has it broken the neckline, which would be the trigger? And the answer is it hasn't yet. The neckline is down here. Price has to violate that. Now, for all we know, we could go like this, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, this is where it would trigger. And if it triggers, right? So let's do a little calculation here. And I love TradingView for these abilities here, just to quickly whip it out. So, in fact, we got to draw the neckline first on it. So bear with me here. All right, so we're going to go back here, and we're going to flip back to this chart here real quick. And we're going to just draw the neckline in, so I get it as accurate as possible. There's your neckline, right? And now what we want to do is we want to go down to our measure tool, take the highest point of the head and shoulders, drop it down. So now it's a $26.20 move on the SPY. So what we do is we do that same sort of thing over here, and let's just say we don't know where it breaks now. Now, please understand, I'm guesstimating where it's going to break. We don't know, but you have to do the measurement once it breaks. But if we drop this down, you're looking at a drop of right there. So again, folks, it's hard to see. I know it's hard to see here, but essentially, if we zoom out, there you go. So basically, if this plays out, I hope you guys can see this, but if this plays out, okay, you have essentially a target of right down here, okay, at 4.0, right here, 407 as a target price on the Head and Shoulders. So that's pretty crazy, guys. That's actually pretty amazing right there. That would be, again, if this plays out, and again, we don't know if it is, because for all we know, by the way, how does a Head and Shoulders fail? Let's talk a little bit about this. In terms of failure on a Head and Shoulders, because this is very important too. All right, here's the high of the head, here's your shoulder that you're making. If this shoulder, okay, getting into some really good education today, guys. If this shoulder goes like this, right? If at any point it takes out the high of the head, it invalidates it, right? Because you can't have a head, a shoulder that, like, think about a human body. Like, I can't even get my shoulder above my head. So therefore, that would invalidate it. No longer a Head and Shoulders. That's off the table. The other way it would be invalidated as well would be if, bear with me, if you ever close below the neckline. So if you close below the neckline and then get back above, invalidated as well. So once it gets below the neckline, it has to stay below the neckline, and then the calculation will generally work. And remember, nothing's perfect. So, does it guarantee that this is your exact to the penny target? No. It's a general idea of where it would go. What I like to do is I like to say, okay, well, if it goes down to this level, is there another support level? And what's so cool is that, look at this. Look at the support right here, all this chop, right to that target. And that's what you'll find is when you do these calculations like measured moves and stuff, you'll find out that this stuff generally coordinates very, very well.